Alhamdulillah, we're getting ready to start the Hadith class for today, and we are continuing with the Hadiths from Riyadh al-Salihin, the book of miscellaneous topics addressing different things in life. And yesterday we began discussion of the second chapter, which are Hadiths related to the importance of Muslims having patience and the virtues of having patience in good times and in bad. You know, that's what we discussed yesterday. And today we're going to continue with several more hadiths from that chapter. We will discuss the meaning of them, and then we will discuss how to apply them to life. But before we do, let's get started by having a quiz. Remember, I'm going to quiz you just to make sure that everybody understands the information here. Oh, are there people in the waiting room still? Why are they in the waiting room? Oh, I have to admit them? I'm sorry. I tell you guys, I am going to learn how to work this this Zoom one of these days. One of these days, inshallah, I'm going to figure it out and have it together. But, you know, I appreciate you guys being patient with me as I, you know, work myself through this. But let's start off with the quiz to cover what we discussed yesterday about patience. And let me put my little quiz up here on the screen. A little short quiz today. Very, very, very short quiz. Everybody should be able to see the screen here. See, 4 little questions. I didn't give you a big quiz today, just 4 short little questions because I know some of you are up late and I don't want to keep you. It's very cold here where I live. I got me a big booming fire going, and I'm keeping my eye on it because I'm afraid of fire. I want to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand because it was just too cold in here. Okay, let's look at the first question. We spoke about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the statement. He said, wudu is half of the prayer. He said, wudu is half of the prayer. What did he mean by that? Can anyone tell us, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean when he said, wudu is half the prayer? You know, we hear this hadith a lot, but it's another hadith that many Muslims don't understand the meaning of. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean when he said wudu is half the prayer? And for those of you listening on Facebook, please don't forget to share us to your timeline. MashaAllah, a lot of you shared yesterday. And oh, I received some wonderful emails from people from your timelines who joined in and they were impressed. Many of them said that their faith was increased. So look at all the blessings you guys got for sharing this live class to your timeline. And those people joined and really benefited from learning about the importance of the patience. So please, guys, share it to your timeline. So that way you can bring more people in here so they can learn Islam and its truthfulness. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean when he said wudu is half the prayer? What does that mean? Sister May Leon and everyone, I'm hoping that I can see you guys type if you guys are typing on Facebook, because you know that's a problem that we get sometimes where I don't see people typing. I'm going to, just to make sure that I can see you all typing, I'm going to rejoin it on Facebook. Okay, there, see, I didn't see the typing. Okay, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mean, Sister Elma, when he said wudu is half the prayer? What did he mean when he said, yes, Sister Yasmin, that wudu is half the prayer? Brother Tariq, your brother, you should know that. What does it mean when the Prophet says wudu is half the prayer? It's not hard to figure out, really. Sister May said he meant that it is a part of the prayer and there is no prayer without performing the wudu. MashaAllah. Good job, May. Sister Laylee said, because without wudu, your prayer will not be accepted. Exactly. That's what he meant. You know, and this is what distinguishes us from the people who came before us. You know, we purify ourselves before we worship Allah. We clean ourselves to show respect to Allah, as Brother Tarek is saying. We make sure that we are in a purified state before we worship him. And our prayers are not accepted and when we are praying unless we are in a purified state. Now, making dua or supplicating to Allah, that's different. You don't have to be in a state of purification to supplicate. We can supplicate and call upon Allah whenever we want to without having to be purified. But when we worship him through our daily prayers, our 5 salats, we have to be in a state of purification. Good job. Everybody did good on that answer. MashaAllah. And let's look at the next question. We talked about also yesterday how the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the Quran is a plea either in your favor or against you. The Quran will either plea for you or the Quran will plea against you. What did the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mean by that? And this is something that we really need to ponder the meaning of. When the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that the Quran will either plea for you on the day of judgment or it will plea against you on the day of judgment. What does that mean? How will the Quran plea for or against us? What does that mean? Who can answer that? What does it mean to say that the Quran will either be a plea for you or against you? How will it be a plea for you or against you? Any answers? Any answers? Okay, Sister Ashley said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is speaking about if a person follows it, or in other words, applies it to themselves or not. MashaAllah. May Allah bless you for that answer, Sister Ashley. That's exactly what it means. That's exactly what it means. When we learn the Quran, we're supposed to apply it to ourselves. Practice it. If you learn the Quran and don't implement it in your life, that Quran will witness against you on the day of judgment. It will say, oh Allah, he knew that it was unlawful to eat swine, but he ate swine anyway. Oh Allah, she knew that wearing a hijab was an obligation, but she refused to wear it anyway. Oh Allah, he knew that he was supposed to perform his prayers every day, but he refused to do it. So the Quran will either be a witness for you or against you, depending on how you implement it in your life or not on the day of judgment. Good job, Sister Ashley. Let's see who else got it. May Leon said to have knowledge and understanding of the Quran can be for if you put it in practice or against you if you neglect it. Exactly, May Leon. Sister May said when you understand what is being said in the Quran, a person may either implement what they learn or not. If you don't implement it, it will be a plea against you. Good job, Sister May. Good job, Sister Sarah. Good job, Sister Elma. MashaAllah, Facebook people got it right. Here in Zoom, Sister Laylee said, if we recite the Quran and ponder the meaning and act upon it, it will witness for us. But if we don't act upon it, it will be against us. Exactly, Sister Laylee. Exactly, Sister Brother Tariq. Brother Tariq. Good job, Sister Sarah Ali. MashaAllah, everybody got that right. So again, guys, I want you to enforce this with your children. Make sure that your children understand that whatever knowledge we have of this deen, if we do not practice it, we are going to be held accountable for that. When the angels of death take our soul, and when we are placed in that grave, the first thing that the angels say to us is, didn't Allah send messengers to warn you? Then they ask us, wasn't Allah's earth spacious so you could move someplace where you could practice the deen correctly and change the condition of yourself? So we're held accountable for what we know. There is no excuse to not practice this religion. If you know the deen, you have to practice it, guys. You'll be wishing you could go back in life and do it over again, but there are no do-overs. When you die, that's it. There are no do-overs when we die. So we better start implementing our way of life now, ASAP. Okay, let's look at the next question. We also spoke about how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. He said there's a difference between the true believer and just a regular person. The true believer, when something good or bad happens to him or her, his or her reaction is different than any other person. How does the true believer differ, guys? How does the true believer react when something good happens to him or her? And how does the true believer react when something bad happens? Remember, there's certain signs that we can look at within ourselves that may be indicative that maybe we have signs of being a true believer. And this is one of them. If you are a true believer, when something bad happens to you, your reaction would be different than anyone else's. How does the true believer react when something good happens to him or her? And how does he or she react when something bad happens? Because regular people don't have this same response. What do you guys think? And remember, I told you guys, and we discussed that hadith yesterday, I told you to look at yourself. Do some soul searching and ask yourself, do you have these two characteristics of a believer? If you don't, then that means you ain't a believer. So we need to work on changing the condition of ourselves. How does the true believer respond to life when life sends it a curveball? And how does the true believer respond to life when life sends it good things? Who can remember? And again, please share this to your timeline so that other Muslims who are on Facebook can join in, and make sure you click share, not party. Remember, Muslims don't party, we share. Click share. If you click share, then I can see their answers. If you don't click share, if you click party, I won't be able to see what they type. Okay. How does the true believer respond to life when life sends he or she good things? MashaAllah. So let's see what Sister Karima wrote. Assalamu alaikum, Karima. I haven't seen you in ages. MashaAllah, I hope you and the kids are fine, and I hope your medical profession is going good, that you're still being that good foot doctor. I'm moving to Cleveland. I might have to come see you about my feet. So get ready. Okay, let's see. Sister Karima said, for the believer, when something good happens, he thanks Allah and shows gratitude towards Allah. And when something bad happens, the true believer remains patient and handles and endures the situation. Exactly, guys. That's the difference. If something bad happens to you and you panic, you scream, you holler, you curse, that's not the characteristic of a true believer. The believer says, and remains patient and handles. He knows Allah didn't put a burden on him that he couldn't bear, so he remains patient and handles it. He starts thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to right this situation? Or how am I going to make the best out of this situation? Let's see who else got it right. Okay, let's see. Sister May said, when something good happens to the believer, they are grateful and thank Allah immediately and recognize Allah's blessings. And when a bad thing happens, they face it and accept it and recognize it's a test. So they are patient with it and they endure it. Good job, Sister May. Same answer from Sister Sarah. Sister Amina said, a true believer understands when good things happen to them and they are thankful to Allah, and when bad happens, they endure it. Exactly. They don't panic. They don't freak out. Sister May Leon said, whenever something bad happens to the believer, he remains optimistic, even in the midst of hardship. He never panics. He endures it because he knows that he can handle it, that Allah didn't put a burden on him that he couldn't handle. It may hurt, guys. Our test in life may hurt, but just because it hurts don't mean that you can't bear it. You deal with the pain and keep going. You keep praying and asking Allah to give you the strength to overcome your pain. And you ask Allah to get you through it, to keep you strong and firm, to keep you resilient and resolute. And know that help will come. Just when you think that you can take no more, I am a witness to that. Just when you think, guys, that you can take no more, that's when Allah sends the relief. And oh, how glorious a relief it is. SubhanAllah. And by the way, one of the signs of knowing that you passed your test are gray hair. After you get through that hardship, you may look up and see, oh my God, where all this gray hair come from? Gray hair is a blessing, guys. We dye it. The Prophet encourages us to dye our gray hair because gray hair can look kind of, funny on you. But the Prophet told us that gray hairs are the blessings from Allah. That's a sign that you've endured and that you overcame whatever your trial was. So if you're going through something painful in life, and one of the signs that it's over with is you'll feel the relief. Oh, it's over. Then you'll go in the bathroom and look up and say, uh-oh, what? Where did this come from? I got gray hair. That's a sign that you got over that test. And I'm sure a lot of you here probably got gray hairs. That's why you see some people who are young, like in their 20s and 30s. I know a lot of Muslims who are in their 20s and 30s, but they have gray hairs. That means that they've been through some really hard struggles in life and they overcame them. And so Allah rewarded them and let them know that he's proud of them by giving them gray hair when they're only 20 or 30 years old. Yep. Sister Yasmin said the same thing. You remain patient. Praise Allah. Because it's easy to forget that Allah is the one who blessed you when times are good. And when time is bad, they remain calm. And they endure. MashaAllah. Everybody understand that? On the Zoom, the same answers. Good job, Sister Laylee. Good job, Sarah Ali. When something bad happens, you remain patient and remember Allah without screaming and all of that. Brother Tarek said the true believer is patient through the calamities of life. They rely solely upon Allah and strive in his way. They have the courage to step up when it is necessary. And they take on each test as a way to grow closer to him and to learn and grow in their character. They don't let themselves get distracted when faced with ease. Instead, they remember Allah and stay firm on the path. Beautiful, brother Tarek. Because so many people, when times are good, they become negligent. You stop praying. Like the Christians. You know, the Christians don't even pray unless something bad happens to them. Something bad happens to them, now all of a sudden they want to go to church. Ain't been to church in 20 years, but now you're going to go to church because you got cancer or because your son was in a car accident. Now you in church praying and ain't prayed in 20, 30 years. You know, we don't want to be like them. We want to remember Allah in good times and in bad times. SubhanAllah. Good job. Good answers. Let's look at the next question. This is the last question. Why is it, and this is a good question that a lot of people may ask, why is it that some people can cry easily, whereas other people cannot? Remember, we talked about how the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he held his grandson, and his grandson took his last breath and died, the Prophet began to weep tears. And some of the companions asked him, why are you crying? You know, why is it that some people can cry when something like that happens, but other people can hold a child and watch the child die and it doesn't do anything, they don't cry at all? What's the difference? What is it that the person who cries has that the person who can't cry doesn't have? What is it that the person who cannot cry lacks? What is it? And this shows the beauty of Islam. You don't have to go and pay $100 an hour to talk to a psychiatrist, to ask a psychiatrist, why come you're not as emotional? You can donate that $100 to this website. You know, why is it that some people are more emotional than others? You don't have to pay $100 to a psychiatrist for that answer. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was our life coach. He is our life coach. And as our life coach, that means he's also the psychiatrist. He taught us why it is that some people lack emotion over others. What is it that makes them different? Very good. It's compassion, guys. Good job, Yasmin. It's compassion. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that compassion is a gift. It's a gift that comes from Allah. And he only gives it to only some of his servants. So that's why some people can cry easily and others can't. Some people were blessed with the gift of compassion and others were not. So we have people that go and pay hundreds and thousands of dollars to talk to counselors and psychiatrists because they don't understand why they lack emotion. Well, that's why you are Dr. Spock. You're Dr. Spock because Allah didn't bless you with compassion. It's a gift from Allah, just like knowledge. Knowledge is a gift that comes from Allah too. Okay. So again, guys, so that's the answer. Correct answer is compassion. Compassion is what a person lacks. If you're not as emotional, it's hard for you to cry and all of that. That's because you don't have compassion. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that if you are lacking in compassion, there's two things you can do to develop it. Number one, make dua. Ask Allah to bless you with it because it comes from him. And number two, pretend that you are compassionate. In other words, make yourself cry. He said by pretending, eventually it will become habit and it will stay with you. So that's what you can do to develop compassion. Ask Allah and pretend. Make yourself cry when you should cry. Make yourself do that. Exactly, Amina Antar. People who, and you will find most believers, that's another sign that you may be a believer. Okay? If you can handle yourself and remain patient in good times and bad, and also if you have compassion, those are some signs that maybe you are a true believer. All believers have compassion. Without compassion, you couldn't be one. Okay. Mashallah. Everybody did pretty good on that quiz. Mashallah. I'm very proud of your answers. And again, I want you guys to understand. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our life coach. He's our mentor. He taught us how to handle ourselves in all situations, good times, bad times, death, how to be a good wife, good mother, good son, good daughter, how to be a daya, how to be a leader, how to handle depression, how to handle anxiety, how to handle anger, what to do when people slander you, when people backbite you. You know, he taught us how to handle ourselves in all situations. We just have to learn his teachings. And that's the problem today. Muslims don't know his teachings. And that's what this class is all about, teaching you his teachings, teaching you how to handle yourself in good times, in bad times, and all situations. And let's put the hadiths up on the screen for today because we're going to continue where we stopped off yesterday. In fact, for those of you who have the book on the website, just go to the website. I gave you guys the link and it's posted up in the group page. We're going to start with hadith number 31. We're still in the book of patience, the chapter of patience. And we'll be starting with, this is the hadith that I mentioned to you guys yesterday. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by a woman who was crying over grave. And he told her, he said, fear Allah and be patient. She told him, get away from me. My hardship has not happened to you. You don't know what I'm going through. So the Prophet walked away. Later, someone came to the woman and told her, do you know who that was that told you to be patient and you yelled at? She said, no, I don't care who it was. They said, well, it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When she found out it was the Prophet, oh my God, she jumped up, she ran to his home. And when she was finally allowed in, she told him, she said, oh, I am so sorry, oh Prophet, please forgive me for yelling at you. I didn't know it was you. And that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told her, patience reveals itself at the first strike of grief or the first strike of a hardship. What does that mean? What the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying is this. You can tell if you are a person of patience when something bad happens. Your initial response, how you respond to that thing. If you scream and holler and yell and curse, then that shows you don't have patience. But if you remain calm and call upon Allah and ask Allah, to protect you and give you the strength, then that's a sign of patience. And I remember a great example of this was one of my students who just passed away recently, Sister Izdihar, and my regular students here remember her. Sister Izdihar, may Allah forgive her of her sins and make her grave spacious. She just died recently from cancer. But Izdihar was a student here for years. And I remember when she first started coming to my classes, she had her oldest son. She was so proud. She had a bunch of children, like 6, 7 kids. And she was so proud of all her kids, especially her boys. And she was Palestinian. And her oldest son used to come to the classes here too. And he was such a remarkable young man. And then one day, her son died from drowning. Some kid had fallen into a river, and her son went into the river to try to save the child. And he ended up drowning as a result. And he was her favorite child, her oldest child. And when it happened, Izdihar was at home right here on this website in class. And I had just ended the class. And they say that as soon as the class was over, that's when the other people come running into her home telling her, oh my God, he's just drowned. He drowned. Your son just drowned. They said that she stood up. They say she raised her hands and she said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. She said, oh Allah, give me the strength. Oh Allah, give me the strength. Oh Allah, give me the strength. And then they say she calmed. The calm just overcame and she said, let's go find my son's body. And they thought she was crazy. The rest of the family thought she was crazy. She was the mother. They said, why is she not freaking out? She said, let's go find my son's body. And she never panicked. She just went out there. They found him. They got the body, pulled it from the river. And they could not understand why Izdihar was, but she said she had just learned it from right here in the class, because I had just taught everybody about patience and how we should handle ourselves when hardship comes. She said, Sister Layla, when I got the news of my son, I remembered everything that we learned about patience. And I asked myself, what would the companions do? Many of the female companions, they lost their sons. Many of the companions, she said, so I just said, Inna lillahi rajiun, like you taught us. She said, in the calm, she said, I could feel Allah just calming me. And that's when I said, let's go find my son's body. So again, that's a sign of a believer. Does everybody understand that? And that's what the prophet was saying. You can tell if you are a person of patience or not. When the calamity first strikes, when you first get that bad news, your initial reaction is important. And exactly like Sister May said, that's why it's important to come to these classes every day. Sister Izdihar, she came here diligently for the past 15 years. She never missed a class, just like May and them and Sarah. Sarah's here every day. Laylee, these are my regular students who've been coming here because remember, we're humans. And like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, the biggest weapon that we have against shaitan is each other, because we remind each other of Allah. We remind each other. And by being consistent and regular and coming to these classes, it's being drilled into you how to behave, how to react when something bad happens, what to do when times are good. So she said she just fell back on it. Inalahi, Inalahi Rajun. And she said, Sister Layla, it worked. I calmed. She never broke down. They say that Sister Izdihar did not break down until after they had buried her son. And even when she broke down, all she did was weep. She just let tears come down her eye. That's the only time they seen her cry, was after they buried him. And guess what, guys? Guess what? 2 years later, she lost her next son, her second son. 2 years later, her second son was killed. SubhanAllah. Again, the more your faith grows, remember I told you guys, the more knowledge that you gain of Islam, the greater your test will be. Izdihar passed the test of losing her firstborn son. So her next test was greater than that. Allah took the soul of her second-born son. Then after that, Allah took her brother. Then after that, Allah took her cousins in Palestine. Izdihar, and then after that, Allah took Izdihar. SubhanAllah. You see how the tests get greater and greater. Izdihar came to these classes every day. The day that she died, she was in this website. And then she had them listening to the class, giving me salams. I talked to her on the phone right before she died. You know, SubhanAllah, you know, we have to be consistent, guys, in learning our religion, because that's the strength we need to fall back on when Allah sends tests to us. And it wasn't just Izdihar. The same thing happened with Brother Bilal. You guys remember Brother Bilal who used to come here? Brother Bilal, he was diagnosed with a blood disease. He died too. He came every day to these classes. He never panicked. He always remained patient, even though he knew he only had a few, months left. First, he had years. Then he had months. Then he had weeks. Then he had days. Then he had hours. They say Brother Bilal never asked why. He never asked Allah, why is this happening to me? He was young. He had just got married. He had only been married for a few years, and his wife had given birth to their daughter. He knew that he would never see his daughter grow up, but he remained patient and accepting of Allah's decree, never questioning Allah, never questioning life. I remember the day he died. I was teaching this class, the Hadith class. He came to class, and I remember I asked him, how are you doing, Brother Bilal? He said, Sister Layla, I'm in between. And I knew that he was also Palestinian. He said, I'm in between. And I knew he meant he was in between life and death. And he was in a different time zone to me than I am. And so they said that after the class, I remember I made dua for him. Then his wife called me. She said, Sister, I just want to let you know Bilal just died. The last thing he did before he died was he came here to this class, participated. Then after he was done, he made salat. She said he died right after he made salat. SubhanAllah. We've had some good brothers and sisters, who used to be regular students here who have passed, and moved on. May Allah forgive Brother Bilal of his sins and make his grave spacious. I'm always making dua for Bilal and Sister Izdihar. And I'm always supplicating for Brother Melvin's mother. You guys hear me talking about Melvin. Why do I love Melvin so much? Melvin's mother used to come here every day. She's the one that got Melvin to join, and his brother Mike. She came here every day, remained patient. And guess what? She couldn't speak English because Brother Melvin is Malaysian. Brother Melvin and them would translate for her. They would translate for her, but she didn't miss not one class. and she had cancer, and she died of cancer, and I'm always making dua for her too. I'm always praying for her, Izdihar Bilal, and also Sister Elizabeth. Sister Elizabeth was a new convert who started coming to my classes. She died of brain cancer. You know, subhanallah. Again, guys, Allah will test us. Life was meant to be a test. How you handle yourself can determine whether you have a good ending or a bad ending. And that's why the prophet, you know, taught the companions always remain patient. Even if something bad, you get bad news, or even if something bad happens to you, understand, you know, you can handle it. Just remain patient and keep asking Allah to give you the strength to endure it. Subhanallah. And you can tell how much a believer you are from your initial reaction. Yeah, we lost some good students here, you know, and I'm always making dua for my students. I pray for them every time. I love them, and I pray for them, and I miss them. I really do. Bilal, Izdihar, Elizabeth, Brother Melvin's mom. I just missed them all. SubhanAllah. Okay, guys, let's look at the next hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah says, this is a beautiful hadith qudsi. Allah says, I have no reward other than paradise for a believing servant of mine who remains patient for my sake when I take away his beloved one from among the inhabitants of this world. This hadith here, I remember Sister Izdihar telling me that hadith there is what got her through the death of her oldest son and her second son when he died right after him. He was killed right after him. She said, Layla, you know, nothing but paradise. I mean, for a mother to lose her sons, her two oldest, steadfast, righteous sons, one through a drowning, he was trying to save another person's life, and the other one, his life was made short by some foolish other person. She said, Sister Layla, that hadith there, you know, got me the most. You know, nothing but paradise for the person who remains patient and doesn't go crazy and doesn't panic and ask why when Allah takes their favorite people from this world. No mother and no father likes to bury their children. You expect to die before your children, but you remain patient with that and accepting of that. You're deserving of paradise. And this is so sad, guys, because I tell you guys as a daya, you know, it's my job to warn, it's my job to admonish, and it's my job to give hope. In our Aqidah class, our Tawheed class, I'm usually warning and I'm usually advising you. This class, I'm giving you hope. The Hadith class is nothing but hope. But for some of you, I look on your Facebook pages, because, you know, I'm always checking your Facebook pages, you know, to see where you guys are in your understanding of the religion and your practice of it. I am so sad to say that on some of the Muslims' Facebook pages, they have things on there about how they can't get over the death of someone. I'm remembering my mother. She died a year ago. Oh, mother, life is gone. Oh, mother, your mother can't hear you. The dead cannot hear you. The dead cannot see you. The dead are not even thinking about you. Your mother is not even thinking about you. The dead people, when we die, we're busy dealing with the afterlife, with what are trying to bargain your way and bargain your way in that life. But I look at so many Muslims who cannot accept the decree of Allah, and they put so many things on their Facebook page showing that they haven't accepted death. And, you know, we have to let go. I tell people death is a hard thing for any human to accept. Okay? But the best thing to do is do like the Prophet did. Let go. Let it go. Just don't think about it. When a person dies and passes on, you know, do it for that person, but that's it. When you're sitting by yourself and your personal jinn tries to get you to reminisce, and you know that reminiscing is going to cause you to get sad, and you know that sadness is a trigger of weakness of faith for you, say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and get up and do something else. I just lost my stepfather. My stepfather was the man who raised me because my real father died when I was young. My stepfather just was buried 3 weeks ago. But even now, if I feel, you know, if I'm sitting here by myself and I start thinking about how it was, and I start feeling myself miss him to the point where I'm getting ready to get all depressed and anxious, I get up and say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and I'll come on here and start lecturing, or I'll get up and do something else to take my mind off of it. Because your personal jinn, remember, he knows your strengths and your weaknesses. Your personal jinn wants to take you to that place that can become a dark place for you. Don't give your personal jinn that power. Death is hard for any of us to accept, especially someone close to us like our mother, our father, our brother, our sister, our son, or our daughter. So when those thoughts of them sneak up on you, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and get up and go watch television, go jogging, you know, take your mind off of it. Don't let your personal jinn take you to that dark place. My personal there, because not only did I just lose my stepfather, but I'm still getting over Izdihar. Izdihar just passed away a few months ago. I'm still getting over Izdihar. But I don't let my jinn take me there. I'll get busy. I'll make do it for them and just get busy. You know, go on to something else. So that's what you got to do, guys. And so that's what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam meant when he said, and let's look at that hadith again. Oh, do we see it here? There's no other reward than paradise for the believer who remains patient for the sake of Allah when Allah takes away his beloved one from among the people of this world. So the next time you find yourself missing your husband who died, or the next time you find yourself missing your mother, you know, to the point, or your loved one to the point where it's depressing, where you start wishing that you could talk to them, you know you can't talk to them. You know they can't hear you. You know they can't see you. So when you find yourself going there, just say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and think about this hadith. Think about this hadith. To remain patient and not transgress the limits of Allah, your reward will be paradise. Subhanallah. Okay? Let's look at the next hadith. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tells us that she asked the Prophet, and this hadith I want y'all to pay attention to. I hope Sister Zarina's here because she asked me about this, and Sister Fatima. She asked the Prophet about pestilence. In other words, plague. She asked the Prophet about plague. He said, plague is a punishment which Allah sends upon whoever he wills. But Allah has made it a mercy to the believers. Anyone who remains in a town which is plagued, maintaining patience expecting the reward from Allah and knowing that nothing will befall him other than what Allah has decreed for him, he will receive the reward of a martyr should he die from that plague. You guys hear that? So the whole world, we are all experiencing the plague of coronavirus. Coronavirus is a plague sent by Allah. If we remain patient, not panic, not freak out, if the governor of your state, like where I live, has issued a ban telling you that you can't travel anywhere, you see, that's what the prophet did. Back in the prophet's days, whenever they were faced with a plague, this is what the prophet would do. He would tell the people, if the plague is in your town, stay in your town, don't leave. Because if you leave, you're going to spread it to others. And if you should die from the plague, you'll die a martyr. You know, if you die, as long as you die within good standing with Allah. In other words, upon the correct belief system. Okay? So we're faced with this plague of coronavirus. It's all over the world. If the governor of your state has issued for you to stay indoors, you stay indoors. Okay? If your state shuts down jobs, if your state shuts down and doesn't allow us to travel, you don't travel. If your state declares you can't even go to the mosque anymore, you don't go. You obey the law. Okay? And should you contract coronavirus and you are in good standing with Allah and you die from the coronavirus, then you die the death of a martyr. A lot of people ask me, how did the prophet deal with plague? That's how he dealt with it. The same way the world is dealing with coronavirus today is how the prophet dealt with it. Okay? So don't get mad if your state or your city or where you live at shuts down. The prophet depends on how bad the plague is. He would shut it down too. Okay? Okay, let's look at the next hadith. It's all about being patient, guys, because, you know, again, what's one of the signs of the believer? The believer remains patient in good times and in bad. Right now, the whole world, we're experiencing bad times with corona. Don't let corona get the best of you. You get the best of it by remaining patient, calm, enduring it, not panicking, fulfilling your obligations to Allah and trusting in Allah, that knowing that nothing will hit you unless Allah decrees it. And if Allah decrees for you to get it, nothing you can do to stop it. Okay? And let's look at this last hadith for today. Anas, and for those of you who don't know, Anas was the stepson. He was the stepson of the prophet. People don't know that. He was the prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's stepson. He said, I heard the prophet say, this is another hadith Qudsi, that Allah has said, when I afflict my servant with his two dear things, meaning his eyes, and he endures patiently, I will compensate him for them with paradise. What is he talking about this? Blindness. What the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, that if a person loses their eyesight in this world, you are able to see, but then you get cataracts or something and you become blind. That's a hard thing to go from light to darkness, to total darkness. And again, Allah knows his creation better than we know ourselves. Allah knows it's a hard thing to endure, losing your eyesight. So for the person that does lose his eyesight, his ability to see or her ability to see, and you remain patient, Allah will pay you for that on the day of judgment. The same way he's going to pay Abu Sufyan. Remember, we talked about Abu Sufyan. When Abu Sufyan converted to Islam, he spent the rest of his life fighting in the way of Allah to make up for the mistakes he made before he converted. And this is why I tell you guys, who cares about people's conversion stories? There's a lot of Muslims out there who travel all around the world giving lectures, and they're famous. They give lectures about their conversion. Who cares about your conversion? It's not what made you convert. Allah made you convert. Allah is the one that guides to the truth. The question is, what have you done since you've converted to Islam? Well, Abu Sufyan spent the rest of his life making up for all the bad things he did before his conversion. In fact, he fought the first battle after the conquest of Mecca when the Romans threatened, declared war on the Muslims. And also the people of Taif had joined up with them. Abu Sufyan fought on the battlefield against them. And during his first fight, this is when the prophet was left on the battlefield by himself, because many of the new converts were hypocrites or were just fearful because they didn't have faith in their heart. It was Abu Sufyan who went out there with his swords fighting left and right the people of Taif. And the prophet asked, who is that man? And his uncle Abbas said, that is your brother. That is Abu Sufyan. And the prophet said, is that my brother? My Abu Sufyan protecting me? And Abbas said, yes. And that's when Abu Sufyan lost his first eye. In that battle, he lost his first eye. When the battle was over, the prophet went to Abu Sufyan and said, Abu Sufyan, Allah told me to tell you, if you want, he can restore your eye to you now. Or he can give it to you in your hand in person when you enter into paradise. Abu Sufyan looked up. He said, Allah will give it to me himself when I enter paradise. He said, subhanallah, I don't want my eye back. Tell Allah I'll keep this one eye, and I'd rather him give it to me in person when I enter paradise. Subhanallah. And that's when the prophet that's when the prophets made this statement. He said, subhanallah, what a great man, a great believing man Abu Sufyan is. And that's when he said, anyone who remains patient when they lose their eyes, Allah will pay that person back with it in paradise. So that's where that hadith came from. That's the history of that hadith. That hadith was said when Abu Sufyan lost his eye. And just so you guys know, Abu Sufyan lost his other eye fighting against the Persians. So Abu Sufyan ended up being completely blind when he died, because he lost both his eyes fighting in the way of Allah. And he will be of those 75,000 forerunners who will enter paradise without even being judged, because Allah has already chosen to forgive him of any sins he committed. Okay? So we're going to stop right here for today. These are wonderful, wonderful hadiths for us to ponder the meaning of and apply to our lives. Again, the best role models for us, the best examples for us are the prophet and his companions. They taught us how to handle ourselves in good times and bad. They taught us the importance of showing patience. Some people grasp it, like Sister Izdihar did, and like Brother Bilal did, and like Brother Melvin's mother did. But unfortunately, guys, many Muslims don't grasp it. You know, they end up panicking and freaking out when Allah sends a calamity their way. You know, let's try to be like the prophet and those companions and show patience at the beginning of a hardship, not after you done acted a fool when it's too late. Okay, so we'll stop right here. If you guys have any questions or comments, inshallah, I'll type them on the screen. And for those of you on Facebook, I can see your questions or comments too. So if is there anything that you need more clarification on or something that's not clear to you, go ahead and type it, inshallah.